So in this video, we're going to go over how to apply landed costs to your inventory. So I've got an example purchase order here. We're going to buy some desks from Wood Corner. So I've got my purchase order. I'm buying 10 of these and 5 of these. But in this instance, I don't know what my freight is going to be. So I'm not going to add my freight line. If you had a pre-quoted freight and you know what the vendor is charging you for freight, you can go ahead and add that to your purchase order. Not a problem. I'm going to go from the example of I don't know what that is. So right now I've got my confirmed purchase order and I need to receive my inventory. So you have to have the inventory in the system and the receipt completed before you can add your landed cost. Technically, if you add your bill, that's fine. You can go ahead and create your bill, enter it in the system, and you could create your landed cost calculation, but you won't be able to finalize it until you have your inventory received in the system. So for this example, we're definitely going to start there. We're going to jump into our receiving document, and I'm going to say that we got all of our products in full from Wood Corner. So I got my 10 and my 5 units. So I'm just going to go in here and automatically apply all of my receiving operations, and we're going to receive both of those products. And now on my purchase order, you can see I've received everything, and I can go ahead and create my bill and get my bill set up from my vendor. I'm going to set it as of today. And when I've got my bill from my vendor, they charge me $950 for freight. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab my landed cost shipping product. You'll notice that there's a checkbox here. That's just to help you know that this is a landed cost type of product and that it will allow us to create our landed cost allocations. So from here, I'm going to remove my taxes. That product should have been removed, but anyways, I'm not getting charged tax on my freight. So I'm removing my taxes and I can go ahead and save this. So I've got my product cost, my $950 worth of freight, and I'm going to come up in here and confirm my bill. So you'll notice that as soon as I confirm it, I have this new landed cost button on my bill. Okay, so that before we click on that, the thing we forgot is we need to go back to our purchase order. To create the landed cost, we need to know our receipt number. So I'm going to come in here and grab that receipt number. I forgot to grab it originally. So I'm just going to back up and grab that number. So it was warehouse in 24. And now I can jump back to the PO and back to my bill. So once I'm on my bill, I've got this create landed cost. I can go ahead and click this button and it's going to create a new record for us. It gives it its own number so we can keep track of these, and it will help us allocate the costs of this $950. So you'll see it automatically pulled in this shipping expense from my bill, and it has the split method as defaulting in this example to weight. Okay. So the next step is I need to tell the system what products I want to allocate that $950 to. And that's where that transfer number comes in. So I'm going to come in here. You could type it in 24, or I'm just going to paste the whole thing because I copied it. And here's my warehouse transfer. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. I did skip over this. You can also do landed costs based on manufacturing orders. Not nearly as common, but it can occur if you have excise tax or other taxes or something that you want to apply to the cost of manufacturing, or maybe some other third-party costs that you want to allocate. So that's the only transfer that I'm going to allocate. You can add multiple transfers or multiple manufacturing orders. So if I had back orders or received it in multiple steps, you can allocate the $950 across multiple of those at a time. From here, you can either validate it. But before I do that, I want to do just a quick check. So I'm going to go ahead and come down here and I can click on this compute. You don't have to do this. You can just automatically validate it. But if I click on that compute and then go to my inventory or my valuation adjustments, this is going to show me how things are going to calculate out. So based on my weight, I'm going to take the $950 and I'm going to allocate that based on weight. So what the system is doing is it's going through each of these products. I've got my corner desk and my large desk. I've got 5 of these and 10 of these, and it's going to go through and look at the weights, and it's calculating a weighted average. So it's saying based on what I paid for it, this was $600 per desk. I've got 10 of them, so my original value is $6,000. Based on my freight allocations, the new value is going to be or $6,867.27. And this is the additional cost that's going to be applied to this product. So you can do that as just a quick sanity check to make sure that the numbers make sense and that the allocation is the way that you want it. I can technically come in here and say, well, actually, maybe I want it by current cost. And I can go ahead and recompute it. And now you can see the allocation method is a little bit more even. It's based on the cost of those products instead of based on the weight. However, shipping is typically, the higher the weight the product is, the more it's going to cost. So in this example, I do want it calculated by the weight. But this is a good thing to double check. If your product doesn't have a weight, then it's not going to appropriately, like if this one didn't have a weight, it's going to have a 0. It's not going to apply any of the cost to that product. So if you're using weight-based, make sure that each of your products have appropriate weights assigned to them before you do that. Okay, that's all that I need to do. I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to validate this. And the system is going to generate adjustment entries to apply those. And you can see that if you have full permissions, you can see the evaluation method. You can actually click on it and you can go in here and see the changes in evaluation that have been made. And the warehouse in number that it's been allocated to, and you can see the cost and the total values over here. So that's the step of creating your landed cost. Well, we have I'm going to bring up the next scenario is, what if you had to pay duties and freight or duties and taxes, and that was a separate bill? It wasn't through the same Wood Corner, it was a different vendor. Well, you can still do that, and I can add another landed cost to the same receiving document. So a lot of times, if it's just a service product, I might not have a purchase order in it. But maybe if I'm from the accounting system, I got a bill from my vendor. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a bill. And so this vendor, maybe it's an individual that I have. Audrey does my tax and duties, or you can have, maybe it's a, U.S. Department of Importation. You can set it there. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take, now this is where I'm going to have my landed cost duties. And I'm going to do, again, just a single quantity, and I'm going to set my total price. I had to pay $250 worth of duties to get this shipment in. And again, I'm going to come in here and just manually remove my taxes. And I'm just going to come in here and create this bill. And I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. So I just got a bill from whoever's handling my duties, and I'm going to pay them. It's a separate vendor. I'm going to pay them $250. Well, it's going to do the exact same process. I can click on landed costs, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to apply the exact same transfer. And you can see this one, I have it based on current cost. So duties, I had to pay, say, 25%. I didn't actually do the math. It may be a little bit off, but I had to pay a percentage or a tax on all those products that I just imported. I'm going to pick the same transfer and go ahead and do a compute and double check my adjustments. You can see here where it's a little bit more even because my cost of my products is a little bit closer in line with each other. And you'll see now that the original value before, it was $6,000. Well, now it says my original value is $68,67.27. You'll recognize that number from the freight allocations that we've done. So now I can come in here and validate this one, and it's going to make those final adjustments, and it's going to apply the cost of the freight to those products. So that is the process for doing, independent. You can have them tied to purchase orders, but they don't have to be tied to a purchase order. You can have a separate bill, maybe from FedEx or UPS directly, and you can still take the cost of those and apply them to your merchandise. Technically, if you want to go back or you want to manually create these, you can also manually create landed costs by going to inventory, operations, and at the bottom, there is a landed cost. So this is where you're going to see all of your landed costs. I got a couple here in draft that haven't been confirmed, but I can also manually create these. In this case, it's not pulling in from a bill. I can also manually create a bill and say, hey, I want to pull from this bill. If there's a landed cost item on it, it will pull from it. So in this example, there wasn't. But I can also come in here and post in my transfer and say, I'm just going to manually add, maybe I'm going to grab my freight product. I can split it equally and say there was an additional, $100 that I want to allocate, and I can compute that difference, and it's just going to equally apply the cost across those products. And it's based on, you can see here that it's equally applying it based on the line item, not the received entry. So if you want it to be based on quantity, then I can do it based on quantity, recompute, and now it's going to split it across the 10 versus the 5. So you can see a couple of those different split methods, and I can manually create this and validate it, and it's going to add the cost of that extra $100. It's not even tied to a bill. I'm just allocating expenses. And you can pull this out of, you can pick a different account. So this can be really helpful if you have like a FedEx bill or a UPS bill. You've already paid the bill, and it was $1,000 for the month, and you want to go allocate $100 of that to this particular receiving document or whatever. Then you can actually, before I posted that, I should have come in here. If I create this, I can add my freight. I can change this account and say, hey, if I have a shipping chart of account, which in this case I don't, maybe I booked it to, I booked it to cost of goods sold. I can pick my cost of goods sold, and it's going to pull it out of cost of goods sold, and it's going to allocate it to my inventory. So you can also pull out expenses that have already been reconciled that didn't run through bills or invoices. And technically you can come in here and manually create these landed costs.